Hello everyone and welcome. Today I have with me something truly special, well to me at least. I have here with me the Rolex Cosmograph Daytona 1165 19LN-0025. In other words, it is a Rolex Cosmograph Daytona in 18-karat white gold with a black dial and diamond hour markers that sits on Rolex's ever so comfortable rubber Oysterflex bracelet. This watch was kindly lent to me by a relative of mine, and so unfortunately it isn't mine. But nonetheless, let's begin with the review, and more of these luxury reviews will come once in a while. Why 18-karat white gold? Why not 24-karat? Well, in the jewelry and luxury accessory world, 18-karat gold is preferred to 24 carats, with 24 carats being made of 100% pure gold, being too soft of a material to be used, leading to an accessory like a watch to be easily scratched and damaged. This 18 carats of mirror-polished white gold on this Daytona results in a weight of 158 grams with an error of 1 to 2 grams, seeing that protective stickers were added to it. The iconic style of the watch with its triple sub-dials, tachymetric bezel and thin chronograph hand bids the taste of people around the world, inclusive of both men and women, young and old. And if you are a fan of value for money Chinese watches, an homage to this one watch launched a brand with a familiar sounding name into the limelight, Pagani Design. The Rolex Cosmograph Daytona, despite being an extremely popular watch nowadays, had not always been this popular in the past. Frankly, it has an extremely interesting backstory. In 1955, Rolex released the reference number 6234, Rolex Oyster Chronograph, an average-looking watch with a manual wind chronograph living in an oyster case. This could be considered as the first predecessor to the Daytona, and as the years went by, a couple more variations and references were created. Then came the 37mm reference 6238, widely known by collectors as pre-Daytona. The first series of reference 6238 was about the same as the 6234. Not much has changed, however, the second series was fundamentally the same, but saw a change in style. Series 2 of the reference 6238 saw a more modern design of the dial, markers and hands. Note also at this point of time, the tachymeter was on the dial itself. A few years passed, and in 1963, Rolex released the reference 6239, Rolex Cosmograph, a term coined by Rolex to describe a watch with a moon phase and calendar function, seeing another change in style with a new bezel that includes an engraved tachymeter scale and the iconic panda dial configuration. Rolex initially used the name Le Monde while advertising the Cosmograph, but instead chose the other grand race event at the time, Daytona, in 1965. Rolex added the word Daytona onto the dial of the watch and also introduced a variation with a new dial named Exotic. Later on, the new reference 6240 Rolex Cosmograph Daytona entered the market as a fully water-resistant chronograph, having screw-down pushes and a metal bezel with a plastic insert, and was produced only in stainless steel. Some reference 6240 variants did not have the red Daytona on the dial. Rolex then introduced the reference 6241, which came with a plastic bezel and non-screw-down pushes. New references kept on being released, mostly with the same overall design and look, all the way till the reference 6265, which ended its production in 1987. In 1972, a beautiful lady and amazing actress, Joan Woodward, gave her husband a Daytona, and not only a Daytona, Joan gave him a rare piece, a reference 6239 that came with the beautiful exotic dial, her husband being the late acting and car racing legend Paul Newman. This watch was a gift from his loving wife as he began his career in racing, and a wonderful gift it is. This, however, is not the first Daytona that Mr. Newman had. He had been photographed with the reference 6263, his first Rolex Cosmograph Daytona. The Cosmograph Daytona went from a watch that rotted away on shelves, a watch that was given away as a bargaining chip, to a watch that almost every well-off collector wanted in their collections. This very special exotic dial-fitted piece, owned by Paul Newman himself, sold at auction for a whopping $17,752,500 US. In 1988, the year that racing legend Ayrton Senna won the Formula 1 World Drivers' Championship in his McLaren MP44, the year that Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up won Best British Single at the Brit Awards, the year that Rolex began production on the revolutionary reference 16500. The new reference received outstanding feedback with a limited supply of movements from Zenith that the new reference housed, and the huge demand increased the desirability of this watch tenfold. New variations of this new reference were created, and then came the reference 1165. 116500. This new line brought over the design of the old and livened it up, whilst also housing the new Rolex caliber 4130, the same caliber in the watch that I have here today. New variations of the 116500 line appeared across the years till present day, with the more notable ones being the 116500 with a black dial and a white dial, the platinum 116506, the rainbow 116595, the yellow gold 116508, and the blue dial 116509. The build of this watch is undoubtedly Rolex quality, meaning an outstandingly solid and precisely made watch. The dial is completely free of dust, as expected. The case is finished to a point where the rounded angular edges look sharp but feel polished, and like most modern Rolexes, this Daytona comes with a piece of thick, raised sapphire glass. The markings on the ceramic bezel are engraved with high precision, and the watch itself feels like a solid piece of metal despite having a full movement inside. Rolex, in my honest opinion, beats out almost all the luxury watch companies in terms of build, coming close to the likes of Patek Philippe and Vacheron Constantin. This is in spite of Richard Mille's and Audemars Piguet's having a substantially larger price tag. Having had the chance to play with both brands' watches, I really feel that they have no chance in terms of overall feel to go toe to toe with Rolex. And no, I'm no Rolex fanboy, with the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Jumbo Extra Thin 15202 ST being one of my all-time favorite watches. The caseback you get with the Daytona is the same solid caseback you get with most of Rolex's other models, with the flat brushed piece of metal with jagged edges for caseback removal along its circumference. Nothing much else to say there. But when it comes to the strap and clasp, I certainly do have something to say. The strap is amazingly soft and looks good as well, flowing well with the oyster style Daytona. This rubber strap consists of two flaps underneath to keep some air between the rubber and your wrist, preventing that clammy feeling you get with most rubber straps. The oyster flex strap has a flexible piece of curved metal built inside of the rubber. This metal strip has an elastic property allowing it to hold a shape curved to fit a person's wrist. This permanent curve makes it much more comfortable as the strap easily conforms to the wrist of the wearer. The clasp is another shocker in a good way. I am not too sure if this is only reserved to Rolex's made in gold, seeing that the only other Rolex I got to play with was a GMT Master 2 root beer, but the clasp on these Rolexes feel really amazingly crafted. The clasp has no sharp edges, feels really smooth, and the moving metal parts slide across each other like a hot knife through butter. Seriously, the joints on the clasp have zero wobble, and despite that, still move smoothly. The clasp lock clicks into place with little effort, but yet fits tight enough to not fall off. Like the clasp, the 40mm case of this watch does have a really high level of finishing, with distinct borders between the polished and brushed edges of the watch. The crown on the watch is a screw-down crown and screws down without any scratchy feeling. The crown itself is precisely made with sharp-looking jagged edges to provide a good grip, whilst being also not too sharp that it damages skin. The screw-down pushers have a beveled edge to them, adding on to the finishing of the whole watch and operate smoothly just like the crown. Diamonds sit comfortably on white gold applique hour markers on the deep black dial of this Daytona. The dial of this watch is pretty simple, a neat mess. Three chromatic sub-dials sparkle along with the diamonds under light. The word Daytona sits above the bottom sub-dial in a deep red, making it slightly difficult to see, but also maintaining the sleekness of the Daytona's design. At 12 hours sits the beautiful Rolex crown, with Rolex Oyster Perpetual Superlative Chronometer officially certified, and lastly Cosmograph written down beneath. The 3, 6 and 9 hour markers are replaced tastefully with physical number markers denoting the number of seconds in each quarter, them being 15, 30 and 45. The movement that sits beneath this dial ticking away is Rolex's in-house caliber 4130 with an error of plus or minus 2 seconds a day. This movement is just a simple mechanical column wheel chronograph built to a high quality standard. The bottom sub-dial ticks away at 28,800 beats per hour, with the sub-dial to the right being a 30 minutes counter and the left being a 12-hour counter. This movement has a decent power reserve of 72 hours and can be hand wound, and also wound by its bidirectional rotor. The pushes on this movement are strong but don't require too much force to activate, with the top pusher starting and stopping the chronograph hand and the bottom pusher resetting the hand to its original position. These pushers depress with a satisfying metallic click and are also very easy to use. The Lume is, as Rolex calls it, chromolite, a highly legible luminescent material. The Lume is pretty decent, but is, dare I say it, comparable to Seiko's Lume in terms of brightness, but definitely does last longer. The Lume also takes quite a long time to charge up, but this may be because of how old this specific piece is. Now let's talk about the price. I'm on the fence. Would I pay the aftermarket price of $40,000 to $50,000 for this? This watch is sold by Rolex for around above $30,000, which is not too bad, seeing that this is made of white gold, and really, you can't go wrong with a Rolex. And if you could get it for the Rolex boutique price, I would say definitely go for it. But whether it's worth the market price is really up to you. And what do you like? What do you feel about the luxury watch climate nowadays, compared to how it was in the past, where Patek Philippe boutiques literally had to give discounts on their watches to sell them? Let me know in the comments down below. Well, anyways, thank you once again for watching. Sorry for the long absence of videos, I'm getting busy with school again. And please remember to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment complaining about how shitty the watch market is nowadays. Leave something. I would love to talk about watches with you guys down below, and also, if you want to get that Rolex, link is down below. Ha! Just kidding, it just links you to Rolex's page for this specific model, that chances are you won't be able to get unless you formed a budding relationship with your authorized dealer. Anyways, have a very nice day.